Welcome to Chamber Talk, brought to you by North Orange County Chamber, where we explore the stories and insights of leaders, business owners and CEOs from various sectors who are making a difference in our community and region. Whether you're tuning in via podcast or joining us via video, we're glad to have you here. Welcome to Chamber Talk. My name is Andrew, and today we are very lucky. We have Professor Henderson, who's here on Chamber Talk. We met Rosalind maybe a month ago. She came into the chamber, inquired about joining. She then became a member, and then a couple of weeks later, we got chatting to her, and we realised she should be at our SHE event this year. So she's actually going to be one of our guest speakers at the SHE event, and we've asked her to come in today to talk to us a little bit about sharing more about herself and sharing a little bit about the 25 years in teaching that she's done, and of course all the leadership skills that she's going to be sharing with us at the event. Rosalind, thank you so very much for coming in today.
Oh, what an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So I want to start off with something a little easy for you, just before we dive in. And can you share a little bit about your journey from teaching all the way up to now coaching and other bits and pieces?
Oh, surely. So for most of my career, I was a teacher, actually for 30 years with Inglewood Unified School District. And I was a teacher who was gung-ho. Definitely was a pleaser. And as you know, teaching is a very difficult profession, and there's the lack of pay, there are the demands, there's the trying to please everyone. And there I was in my early 20s, in my early 30s, trying to please everyone, whether it was the principal, whether it was my colleagues, whether it was the district. I gave so much until I couldn't give anymore, and I burned out. But the good news about that was I asked myself, okay, what does a good leader look like? And I went on a journey. And in my journey, I was able to get taught by the wonderful leadership guru, Dr. John Maxwell, and some other Christian psychologists. And when I came out of that situation, I was with principles. I had principles. I understood how to exercise them. I understood how to set up boundaries. I understood how to push my vision forward. And it allowed me to stay in teaching because I was pondering leaving, you see.
That makes sense.
And what I was able to do in those 30 years was so much more because of my training. I taught 850 kids. I've taught at Cal State Dominguez. I have been able to sit and on committees where I actually wrote a $14 million grant for community schools. My ability to do more and be more was because I got training and I answered that question.
Now, we often hear a lot about teaching, don't we? Like there's the stuff on the news, and you mentioned it there, obviously pay, the amount of work they're doing, they're writing the curriculum, now they've got to be careful what they say and go on and so forth. But one of the things that interests me very much so is it's very hard to self-reflect, and you must have had an aha moment there when you were talking about this. So what really triggered or helped your mind decide to do a reflect in order for you then to ask for help? Because that's another brave thing to do, isn't it?
It is. And the first step is to realize this isn't working. That's very, very important. And the messages that I was getting as a teacher, I couldn't do all and be all. That was becoming very apparent to me.
Right.
The fact that I burned out was really a red flag for me. If I was going to stay in this profession, and I wanted to because I had 2 children who needed me, I'm a single mom on top of that, I needed to find a way to both be excellent, but at the same time do self-care. And that's what brought me to reflect, to start using that thinking aspect of myself, not the reactionary part of myself, but to start asking myself the hard questions. How can I do that? What do I need to say no to? Where do I need to stand up because of my value system? How can I make the work lighter? How can I get into collaboration? That's one way of making the work lighter. So those questions were just, the more I asked questions of myself, the more questions popped up.
Right.
And I was able to create a system of care for myself, a system that I held on to. I had a routine that helped me pretty much stay mentally fit, emotionally fit, physically fit, so that I could do the job the best that I could.
Right. And moving, that's a lot. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say right, like dismissing it. Like that is a lot of a journey, and we don't want to go all into that today because that, I think, on its own would be a full story itself.
Yes, indeed.
I'd like to move forward in today's theme, unlocking bold leadership, and this is something you know a lot about today. So, would you mind maybe walking us through how your experiences through your own personal journey has now unlocked this where you can share and teach and coach others regarding that?
Absolutely. That's the foundation of the leadership program, Ignite Core Leadership. That's the fundamental part of our program. So as a young lady, as so many of us young ladies know, growing up, I heard the messages about being a beautiful, sweet little girl who acquiesced to everyone else. I wanted to make the teacher happy. I wanted my mom and dad to smile. I wanted the pastor to say, "Good, holy girl." I wanted all of that. And I lived that way. And it was working when I was younger. But as I got to be an adult, I began to realize that I was invisible to myself. I did not know myself. Who am I? What do I espouse? What's important to me? Those were unanswerable questions, which I began to reflect on that. I began to realize slowly that the power of leadership for us women who have to be reprogrammed, the power is in being authentically ourselves. That's where the power is. How can I leverage my strengths? What are my values that are so important to me that I'm going to fight for? How can I use all of my experiences, even my weaknesses, to push forward my vision and my agenda? How can I be the best version of Rosalind that I could be? Those were questions, and it's not a one and done. We're always continuing to ask ourselves these questions, because who I am at 50 is not who I am today at 63. So it's always about being more potent. It's always about being more connected to myself, having a deep, trusting relationship with myself, and having faith that that is how I stand in the world, and this is how I move forward goals. And when I realized that I had to unprogram myself as a woman in this society, it unleashed a boldness, because I have a passion about my values. I have a passion for the things that matter for me. That is a place of strength. When I say no to this because I value certain things, then I'm saying, yes to honesty, integrity, those things that are important to me. And society needs this type of bold leadership more than ever.
Now, when you were talking about that just now, it made me really reflect a little bit. I think everyone experiences, and at different levels, but everyone experiences these, what other people or what society looks at what you should be as you're growing up, I think, don't they?
Yes.
And so really, it sounds to me like it's a very inclusive situation a lot of us find us in, male, female, whatever, right? Do you feel in your experience now, or do you see in your experience that this really is a societal issue, whether it's to do with the way schools are teaching us, the way parents are passing on what they learnt from their parents? Is it something that we really need to open our eyes up to, just a different thought process of starting off?
Absolutely. And society is society. It's very difficult to change societal messages. Right. It's in the media. Yeah. It's in our music. It's everywhere.
Right.
However, I think that there's a clarion call, I think more and more, and I see it in different arenas where people are really waking up and really talking more about your core being the place from which you start and look at the world and engage with the world, because that core is very unique. You know, when I really connect to that core, I'm really bringing some unique perhaps answers to long-standing problems because of who I am and how I am wired. And I think this is what we're talking about more and more. My focus is on women in particular only because I know that we have traditionally, and I was born in the 60s, but still my mom was born in the 50s and the 40s. Sure. You know, they still had those traditional roles. Mm-hmm. And there was this thing about being invisible and not being able to make your full impact because, my goodness, I'm supposed to be married and look cute and just be quiet.
Right.
You know, this is what I'm really just railing against, mm-hmm. because, you know, some of us are still stuck with that programming.
Right.
And it took me years to really begin to find my footing and get some momentum and to be able to say, this is not true, this is true about femininity. I do not have to necessarily be masculine, mm-hmm. you know, mm-hmm. in the way, I don't have to be bold. Bold doesn't mean loud.
Right.
It doesn't mean aggressive.
No.
It doesn't mean dressing up like male counterparts to lead. I can bring my feminine energy, mm-hmm. stand on principle, mm-hmm. hold people accountable for higher levels of functioning. Mm-hmm. And whether you're a mother, whether you're a CEO, whether you're running a department, it's still that type of leadership that I think that men absolutely need to engage in, and women too, finding that sweet spot. No longer is that authoritative leadership. That's not in vogue anymore. People are not responding to that. Employees are not responding to that kind of leadership mm-hmm. anymore, because it doesn't work.
No, I don't think it ever really did. It's just you didn't have anything else.
Yes.
I like the fact that you use programmed, because that's what it almost is, isn't it? We're programmed to do something, and we need to, like in a computer these days, rechange that program or rewrite it in code or whatever, right? But we're talking in messages. So one of the things, I haven't read all your books. I know you're a published author. You've done quite a few books. Yes. Congratulations. That's not an easy thing. But I did read over some of the stuff, and it sounds like what you were just talking about is to do with setting boundaries.
Yes.
Would you like to, because I know that's a big part of what your teachings are, would you like to share a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Setting boundaries are essential. I have to decide, and this is where the responsibility comes in with us, self-management. Mm-hmm. What am I going to allow in my life? What am I not going to allow in my life? As a leader, let's say I'm running a department. What kind of values am I going to let into my department? Mm-hmm. What kind of values am I going to say, no, we don't do that here in this department?
Right.
You know, and it takes time to learn how to set boundaries. A lot of people are afraid to set boundaries for a lot of reasons. You know, they've been exposed to boundaries themselves where maybe it was done harshly or whatever. But the key to, I think, successful businesses, or whether you're running a family, is deciding and enforcing what's going to be allowed in this family, what's not going to be allowed in this family. And the hard part, of course, is enforcing that. I remember the turning point for me, if I can tell you the quick story about this. I was a flaming codependent. I'm always trying to please people. One thing I was taught as a teacher, for example, was no matter how egregious or how abusive a parent was, you had a poker face and you took it on. You took it. Whatever days you took it. So one day there was a parent that was in the office with the principal, and they called me into the office. I had been trying to contact this parent for the longest because her child was struggling. We're just in second grade here, couldn't find her. Finally, she just shows up. I come in, and she is railing. I come through the door, she's railing at me what I hadn't done, and I'm the reason why her child is failing. And I explained to her, I had tried to contact you several times. I was explaining that I'm on your side. I want to see this child, and she kept going on and on. And this was the turning point for me, is that I was sitting down at the time. I stood up, and I said, Mrs. Thus and so, when you can talk to me as an adult without the yelling, let's remake an appointment and let's chat, because you're not available to really have a logical conversation with me. And I left.
Right.
And the principal's mouth hit the floor.
Right.
Because that is atypical. Thing. So what I was saying was, I demand respect.
Yes.
And I reinforced it by stepping up, standing up, and leaving the conversation.
Sure. Actions and words. Right.
Actions are words. And that's what I'm saying. For instance, if you're in a department, running a department, and James is constantly late to work, and that is a value that, of course, that you espouse, then you as the supervisor just simply going to say, James, I noticed that you've been 20 minutes late 2 days in a row. We really do value. That's one of our operational values, being punctual and on time. How can I help you to be on time?
Right.
You recognize it, you wanted to help him, but you're also saying you're going to be responsible for this tardiness. And that's what I mean by boundaries. Boundaries really do, I think, push the work forward. It dignifies everyone. Once you know what I'm about, okay, Rosalind's about this. You may not agree, but you're going to respect me more. You see, so that's very, very critical to self-care. Even
now, because we're talking about this, and you gave a great explanation there, and some of our listeners might not quite understand, and that's why I'm going to ask this question. What do you see the difference, or where the line is drawn between when you're choosing boundaries that you want to set in place for, let's say it's work, to give you a better line of thought. So you're in the workplace and you want to set boundaries with what's appropriate and not what is not appropriate, how somebody talks to somebody, how they don't. Where's the line drawn between boundaries that's fair for all, that's meant for all, and ones that are more somebody's pushing their own agenda through that boundary?
Well, that does take discernment.
Okay.
That does take discernment. And that is, again, a leadership issue that needs to be dealt with. If you do see somebody, there's this politics in all of our jobs.
Yes.
Everybody's jockeying for position and things of that nature. You might want to take that person to the side and have a conversation, with them to see where they are and to test your own, perceptions about where somebody is, and, are they for the department, or do they have their own agenda? But essentially, I think that boundaries are a cure for some of the things that are going on, and they're just getting bigger and out of control because no one's saying anything about that person who's being late.
Right.
It's been 3 years, and this person, he started off 15 minutes late. But because you haven't said anything for 2 years, now he's 30.
Right.
And now it's an established habit.
Sure.
How does that impact work, the attitude of everyone else who's working,
everyone else, right.
everyone else? So this is the beauty of boundaries, is that it holds the values up of the organization so that we can get work done in perhaps a faster way and in an elevated way. So that's essentially, yes, how I see it.
We often talk about or see, transforming toxic stress into resilience and things like that. And you've sort of mentioned a little bit with the teaching. Could you share some of the practical, strategic ways that business leaders could maybe provide or apply to protect the energy and the mental health of co-workers in that type of situation?
Absolutely. That has been something added to the list of leaders, the mental health of our employees, where we maybe didn't discuss that 10
years ago or so. Yeah.
ago. That is an issue.
You'd be weak.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I work with lots of companies, Chick-fil-A, UPS. I've worked with colleges and institutions. And this is an ongoing issue for a lot of employees who feel absolutely stressed out with the demands of whatever organization that they're dealing with. And it would behoove, I believe, a leader to have some kind of basic understanding or some kind of care, if it's a basic care program for their staff. Okay. And for instance, there was one organization that I was working with where research tells us that when you break every 90 minutes for like 5 minutes, that you're going to reset your brain, you're restoring your energy. It's a good thing to do. 5 minutes. 5 minutes you could say, okay, I'm taking a break, I'm going to go to the bathroom. That 5 minutes, okay, I'm going to go play a game on my phone. Whatever the 5 minutes is, just take a mental break. One organization actually made sure that every 90 minutes there was a break of 5 minutes. As a teacher, because I can relate to that the most.
Well, yeah, with the kids, right.
We did 5 minutes. We did yoga for 5 minutes,
right.
Or we just did something because they needed the break too,
right?
Instead of forcing it. So corporate care it's just interwoven into the day.
And with your experience there, because that's what a business owner is going to be thinking, aren't they? Well, I don't have all that time in the world. But productivity, I'm sure,
yes,
topples any time. You want to share a little bit about those thought processes?
First of all, the attitude of your staff,
right.
Just the morale goes up because you're showing that you care.
Right.
You're not a human doing.
Sure.
You're a human being.
Right.
And I'm going to treat you as such. And so that's the first thing that happens. And literally, those little breaks, when you add them up over the week, when you add them up over the months, when you add them up over the year, that's a lot of downtime that can be utilized just to have that break so that you can look at the work afresh.
Right.
When that 5 minutes is happening, there are things happening in the background of our minds,
right.
That we don't really realize. And that's really, really important. And I find, too, that a lot of staff members tend to be more loyal. They tend to, again, have a better attitude. They're lending their talents to the staff and the projects when they know you are looking after them in that way.
Right.
So it's a win-win situation. And our staff these days, they want that kind of support.
Right.
They want some practical ways to just burn off some stress. That you've probably heard of some of these tech giant places, the Googles or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's actually a place where you can play ping pong and all those things. Yeah. And those things are really, really important. Can you bring humor in? Can you do something in a staff meeting? In a staff meeting, if you have 5 or 10 minutes, let's do some deep breathing. Mm-hmm. It could be the simplest little things that you bring into the work environment that promotes health.
Right.
There was another organization that I worked with. They started a walking club before school.
Right.
Okay, so they would just... It did wonders, because they're coming out their silos. Oftentimes teachers are just in their classrooms and they don't really intermingle with each other except for staff meetings, and you're really not intermingling then.
Not really.
And then they are building, these relationships, and they have health benefits.
Now, as a sales strategist and obviously an expert in your field, how do you, or is it sort of say, is it a different strategy that you would utilize in a heavy volume sales environment compared to, let's say, an office environment?
I think every environment is different, and you really need to talk to the people, to see what are their needs. I am finding more and more as a theme, you talked about mental health, because I have 6 pillars to my self-care or corporate care program, and more than not, they're saying, talk mental. We want you to talk mental. Give me some strategies so that we could have, that we can deal with our mental and our emotional selves, because that's hitting them, so many people, the most. But yeah, even though there's different types of pressure is pressure.
Of course.
And if I'm not making my sales goals, for instance, what do you do with the inner critic? What do you do with that inner critic that says, you had this goal, this sales goal for the week, and you blew it, you dummy? That's how we talk to ourselves in general, oftentimes, with this scathing shame. How can I reduce that? Because I'm adding to the stress by talking to myself that way.
Sure.
Rather than being kind to myself, all right? Knowing that we're human, and what strategy can I use? What different strategy can I use to make my sales goals?
Now you mentioned just a moment ago about how a lot of people are asking about mental health and how important it is. Through teaching, through your classes, through your coaching, are you continuously also changing maybe a mindset or past teachings, because things do change and more things add into our world as we're moving along? I mean, is it progressive like that?
Oh, absolutely. This is always progressive. I'm always adding different strategies and different exercises that people can use on their own. Now, I want to keep emphasizing it is our responsibility, which we sometimes go, I got other things to do. Don't worry about the mental health, and I'll get to it. But it's up to us to say, okay, let me deal with this inner critic. I give strategies, little simple strategies that people can use to begin to deal with the inner critic, for instance, until that voice becomes less prominent.
Right.
Because once you can quiet that voice, which is then absolutely related to your emotions, that voice will cause me to be upset. If I keep listening to that inner critic, it's going to cause me to be anxious. It's going to cause me I want to get you to a place of more balance. And when you're in a place of more balance, then you can make better decisions, because your mind is not flooded with emotions, for instance. So these are the kind of things that, how can I get to a place where I am in relative mastery of myself? And that's an ongoing project, because, like, again, what worked at 50 for me may not work at 63. So what I try to do is just provide this multitude of different ways to engage your mind or your emotions, your physical self, your energy, or sometimes people, believe it or not, are really stressed because they lost their purpose, they lost their why.
That makes sense.
All those areas we deal with,
right?
When we're talking about leadership training, because those are the things that sometimes need to be reignited, for us to find interest, in what we're doing again, to bring our best every day, like we did 20 years ago.
Sure. Now you posed me another question there, that media or just word of mouth will have us believe that there's a huge difference between baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, alphas now, right? So
yes.
There's all these differences, and everybody's apparently honed into their own emotional stress or what have you.
Yes.
My question is there a big difference between when you're working with different ages? Because before you mentioned about programmed, you and I are a certain age where we're programmed for something, and that was it, and it's stuck there. And only recently are we talking about mental health and how we can open up our minds to other things.
Yes.
So I suppose my main question is there a big difference when you're working with different age groups to help them navigate through life?
I think there is a difference. Our Gen Z folks, for instance, they've grown digital, technology, social media. What I find with some of them is, and this is just broad strokes,
Sure.
But oftentimes we're dealing with social components. When you are in relationship with social media and you're telling your business on social media and you're saying, these are my friends, is that a definition of friendship? The one that you find on social media? Some people take this very seriously.
Yeah.
Some youngsters have difficulty in social situations because social skills might be somewhat paltry.
Sure. That makes
so
sense.
then I would have to deal with teaching social skills, with maybe some of the people on staff. And that's okay. Somebody who's my age, for instance, sometimes we are so set in our ways. We are not going to touch technology.
Right.
Don't you dare ask me to touch technology. Change is, so then, the psychology of change is something that I have to lean on. How can I get these folks beginning to use technology to make their job easier? They don't even realize it sometimes. So those are some of the challenges with different generations. But honestly, it's a beautiful thing to see when I'm working with staff and you have multi-generations, and then there's somehow we're able to just find common ground.
Right.
And I'm giving, as a 60-something-year-old, I can give to that 25, 30-year-old, and that 30-year-old can gung-ho and helping me with technology.
Right.
That's when teamwork becomes something magical to me, and you can do magical work. When we let down those barriers and freely give to each other and understand that we're in this work together.
Now you mentioned something that's it's a big thing that I think I've bumped into myself many a time in the different roles that I've had throughout my career is change. When you take over a corporation or you're the head of something or you're a leader of something, there's always change, right? It could be you're bringing different experience in. It could be just you're setting different boundaries, right? So my first question really is, why do a lot of us have problem with change? And the second one is, how can we better adapt to change without making it such a roadblock?
Change means something different. I think a lot of people, I feel dissatisfied with the familiar. Even if it's not working. At least I'm familiar with it.
Right.
And so change is scary because there's a question mark about change. What is it going to look like? Will I be able to navigate this change? There's all kind of fears associated with it. Are you asking me to do way beyond my ability to do? There's a lot of questions that are subconsciously or even consciously there in regards to change. And so I always see change as baby steps. And I usually start with, of course, I'm dealing with leader and the leaders and leadership team. The change usually starts with the leader. And I think, as in anything, as a parent, as a mom, I knew that if I'm going to help my child with his very first steps at 9 months, then I needed to help that child baby steps. Lots of encouragement, positivity, strategy. Mistakes are welcomed here. You know, let's just, but we're going to chew on the situation and see how we can do it better. So it's a lot of, I'm going to call it hand holding, but it's all human beings. If they're going to make change, I think effectively, there has to be some hand holding.
Yeah.
To just announce that we're going to have a change by blah, blah, and not to usher people slowly into that change, model that change, show them what the end product is going to look like,
Sure.
where they fit into the change.
Some guidance.
Guidance, and more guidance.
Yeah. Support
Until it
and guidance,
becomes
right?
it becomes the new habit.
Yeah.
You know?
I like that. Yeah.
And I think that's much more effective.
Oh, 100%.
And it takes, because you have to deal with the underpinnings. You have the anxiety. Anxiety can be very high.
Yeah.
For some folks who have done it 30 years this way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it does require a lot of patience.
I think that's another part. I think as you're going through life, isn't it? Is certain words, they change, don't they?
Yes.
There's words that we use as kids you can't say anymore.
Yeah.
But they meant something different, right?
Yeah.
For another one, I suppose one that's always done is it's like hand holding. I never even like using the word because it sounds too kiddish, but it's almost, that's all you're doing is it's just support and guidance.
Yes.
and helping people through, isn't it? That's really what we really mean.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's so important
Just
to have
chunks
that.
and just little bits
Just a little
at a
bit,
time.
yeah.
You know, just not biting
Doesn't
off
have
too
to
much.
be all in one day, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just key. And I like the word hand holding. Hold my hand, but but I get it. But you know, that's human nature.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in wanting to make a profit and because we're capitalists and because we want productivity, sometimes we skip over as leaders.
Right.
You know,
You're looking at a different goal, aren't you?
Right, the humanity of our staff.
Right.
And if I address the humanity, the rest comes.
Yeah.
In spades.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit because you are one of our guest speakers at the SHE event.
Yes.
And let's start a little bit about that. What have you been doing to prepare for this event that's going to be on October the 9th?
The word is reflection. I've been doing a lot of reflecting over, my life, over principles that I've learned. I want to set women and give them permission to go deeper and to live their fullest potential. I want them to do what Dr. Miles Monroe, who is a pastor, he's passed now, but he said, I want all of you to die empty. And that sounds like, whoa. But what I mean is everything
Lived it all out.
that I have, every talent, every gift, every strength, my experiences, I want women to be able to leverage that out there with their families, out there, on their jobs, as entrepreneurs, to make the biggest difference they can. That's what I want. So that's how I've been preparing.
And if the average person who's listening today and thinking about, coming to the event or not quite sure, what do you feel that some of the immediate things might be that people take away from them from that day after listening to you?
I have always been a speaker and a teacher. You got to take away some usable tidbits from me. If they're not usable, if you don't walk away with some usable tidbits that are easy to use, then I failed.
Right.
And so what I want to do is, I'm sure that a lot of my audience, they're doing well, they're doing their best. I want them to go to the next level. And so I'm giving them exercises and things to do so that they can go to the next level, so that they can visualize what does the best Rosalind or the best Tammy or the best Marie, what does that person look like, and what can I do? Just a little bit. Bump it up by 10%. Okay? To get me there.
Right. I like that.
And that's what they're going to be walking away with. So I want them to come because I'm going to be sharing those things, and they're going to walk away with a notebook full of ideas, and they resonate. Whatever they resonate with, I want them to use, because it's about us taking more responsibility for being the transformers of our society. It's time for women.
Now, this is going to sound like a bit of a plug, but it's not a plug, but it sort of is, because you are speaking there. You're also giving up a lot of your time doing that, and also afterwards you're prepared to stay back for any book signing. If somebody were, because you've written a few books, if somebody was wanting a book that would maybe encompass so they could follow up or continue to read or even read prior to this event, which one out of your books would be sort of semi the right one? Or is it just, hey, I'm sorry, I wrote 3, read all 3? I mean, what would be your answer?
You are asking a hard question, because I do have negativity no more. Again, us dealing with what goes on in our minds and transforming those things. There's also a book that I have on leadership, because people are the answer to being a good leader and putting people first. I also have the book Beyond Self-Care Basics. Even though it was written for teachers and principals and there are tons of self-care strategies, because I believe in self-mastery. As a leader, we really have to be a little bit more than your average Joe. We have to be about self-mastery more than we are. So you asking me, so I can't choose, Andrew. I love them all.
No, well, but wait, okay, no, I get it. So, audience, buy all 3. But if you can't afford all 3, which one do you feel would be more on topic?
The self-care one.
The self-care one.
Because the idea is I'm always dealing with me first before I deal with you.
With you, right. That makes sense.
I'm plugging into myself, and all of this work that I'm doing this so that I can make more leaders.
Right.
You a leader. That's the one I probably would plug the most. I will be writing another book where it's not dealing with teachers as much, but for women in leadership, absolutely, it's plugging into who we are and being very proud about that.
Right.
And confident about that.
Do you feel... You've got great energy, by the way. So when we first met, it was like on a Thursday afternoon. We had an event on Friday. I was saying, you should come to this event. You want to meet more people. But I just loved your energy. And then come Monday, you came back in. You said, I'm going to join the chamber. And then it's just non-stop. And we've been doing these classes. You met with another chamber member, Carlos Franco. He's been helping you build your website.
Yes.
Let's give him a little bit of plug. How's he been helping you?
Well, I'm new to Buena Park, and Carlos is one of the first people that I met. Carlos said, I want to show you how Buena Parkian, I'm coining a new word.
Okay.
Buena Parkians.
Okay.
How we function and how we act and how open-hearted we are.
Right.
And so he's come alongside me, and he's working with me on my website.
Nice.
Where I'm rebranding myself, and I have found this gentleman to be so there. I have found him to be an expert. I have found him to be open-hearted. I have found him just generous with suggestions, all with the idea of you're going to be a success. I guarantee it, because I'm going to give everything I have to make sure that you're a success. I've never met anyone quite like him before, so eager to give of his time and his talent. And so anyone who needs any kind of advertisement, anyone who needs a website, whatever you need, I believe Carlos is the man. I can't say enough about him. I think I'm going to create a jingle.
Wow, look at that. This is like true chamber talk. This is what it's all about. Everybody all working and creating a synergy and helping each other.
Yes.
And, there's room for us all.
Absolutely.
There's room for us all. So another thing I wanted to ask you was, if people are feeling just stuck right now, and when you're in that position, sometimes you just don't know where to go.
True.
What would be your initial sort of like thought? Share what somebody could do to help them get to the next level, to help them get to the next level, so to speak.
Andrew, my favorite word is reflect.
Okay.
And when you're stuck, I think sometimes we need to just unplug and spend copious time, lots of time with ourselves.
Okay.
What's missing? What's not going right? What do I need? What do I want? This worked in my 50s. This is not working at 63. Just really taking an assessment, an evaluation of ourselves. Again, I believe in having a rock solid relationship with yourself, and we need to take regular inventory of ourselves, which we fail to do sometimes because we get swept up in the rat race. Sometimes we need to unplug and begin to ask ourselves the hard questions. That will ultimately reveal what are my priorities now.
Right.
Which way do I need to move? What do I need to let go of? What habits are not serving me anymore? If I want to be this kind of person, and if you want to go up to the next level, I can see myself, I want to be this kind. What do I have to do to be this kind of person?
Right.
Because I'm not going to be happy until I get out of this quicksand and start moving towards this kind of person that I know I can be if I set the stage for it.
Right. And when you say reflect does not mean beat yourself up. This is more questions. I understood what you were mentioning there. Ask yourself a set of questions.
Yes.
Where do I want to go? Is this working for me? Why is it not working for me? That type of thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you might make some wonderful discoveries. Maybe there are some talents that you have put on the shelf that you need to take back down off the shelf.
Yeah, might have forgot about it, right?
Absolutely. In the rat race, and you're a mom, it's easy to be focused on this person and that person and that person, and again, becoming invisible to yourself.
Right.
And this is what I think I would love women to resist, is becoming invisible to themselves. That they would put themselves on the top of the to-do list instead of the bottom of the to-do list.
Yeah.
Because once you're well and once you're in a good place, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
And that takes some time learning to do that.
Right.
But once we do, then we're not in that stuck place for 2, 4, 5, 20 years.
Right.
Because we're in touch with ourselves.
Right. You just posed a good question there when you were mentioning that. And it seems to be a little bit of a, it's not a trend, that's the wrong word to use, but it's happening more and more that a lot of, in particular women, they're coming out of those years where they're empty nesters now, and now they're going back into the workplace, and they haven't been in there for quite some time. Although back in the day, before they became a mum and everything, or her home caretaker, they were doing well. What is your idea of what they should look at doing coming into this new world? Because there's a lot that's changed over those years.
Ooh-wee.
Excuse me.
I think one thing that I've always suggested and always felt was important is that I not be a couple of people. Meaning, I'm not just a wife.
Right.
I'm not just a mom. I always was aware, even when I was raising kids and being a wife, there's more to Rosalind than just this.
Right.
So I made sure that I was volunteering. I was making sure that I kept up to the degree that I could with my art. Mm-hmm. I made sure I was going to events that stimulated my intellect. I made sure that there were the other aspects of Rosalind being attended to. And I think it makes it much easier when that empty nest is going to come. When the child goes off to college or gets married or whatever.
It's inevitable, right?
It's inevitable, that I feel like I'm still nonetheless important, and I have something to add, and that does a lot for your confidence. I think building your confidence and having your confidence high as you're going back out into the work world is really, really important. And getting the skills that you need, the technological skills, that all that digital things, AI skills. Can I just say that it is so easy now to get these skills, whether you're doing it online on Zoom or you're in person taking a class, but really being focused on building yourself up now. Now that my kids are up and out of the nest, it's my time now, you know, and so I don't have a problem with pouring into myself, taking a accounting class here or art class here, meeting new people, dating again, or whatever it is, because there is no end to developing ourselves. It's something that's infinite.
Rosalind, we've talked a lot about your profession, what you've done. We talked a little about She. You gave a great testimonial for a fellow chamber member. Thank you so very much.
Yes.
But you also have a business, Ignite Core Leadership. So as we are a chamber, what are you looking for as a business? Who are you looking for? Are you looking for companies, individuals? Can you share a little bit about that?
I typically work with companies, like a Chick-fil-A, for instance.
Okay.
And I work with the leadership team. I do one-on-ones also at times, but essentially it's in a group setting where we are talking about igniting the core and addressing issues at their workplace, where the core of ourselves can be utilized to solve some of those issues. For instance, I'm thinking of poor customer service, for instance, and we're coming in and to Chick-fil-A, and they're telling me this is the issue. Everyone presents the issue, but when we hang around long enough and I'm able to build some kind of safety and they feel trust, then the real issues start coming out.
Right.
You know, and what the real issue was that this leader, even though he valued customer service, he wasn't providing the parameters or the boundaries
right.
to make that possible. So therefore, you had some employees who were, you know,
following the same thing,
they were doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, poor customer service,
Right.
bad attitudes, you know, those kinds of things. So when we began to deal with our value clarification and ways to make sure that you enforce that, of course, things got much better. I'm just giving you a small example. So those are the kind of things that we're doing. We're looking to elevate the core. We're looking to elevate productivity and service and the bottom line, and we're looking for collaboration. And we're doing all of that, creating magical work by making sure that we're approaching work-life balance also.
And are you looking for? I mean, obviously, size of the company might not matter so much, but are you looking? Is this you pay more attention just to your leadership, or is it just, well, you might just have one leader and then maybe, you know, you have several employees, or what is it?
I've worked with different models, like that, and my focus is on the leadership, and I ensure that what the leader is learning is trickle-down effect, that is trickling down to the staff.
Right.
You know, and I'm giving ways that can happen. And sometimes I'm even sitting in on meetings because that's the whole point. You know, understanding and making sure that they're understanding also what's being asked of them.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we've reached the point of our episode today where we always sort of like hand the mic over to the guest, and the guest could share something. Maybe we've missed something that they wanted to chat about, or maybe it's a final word, whatever. But anyway, I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Oh, I appreciate it, Andrew. Well, the final word that I just want to emphasize is that I want as many women as possible coming to the She Conference. I know they usually have great attendance. Guess what? We can even bump it up more. Why? Because I am passionate about equipping women with all that they need so they're being even more potent as leaders. You know, that sense of satisfaction when you know that you're operating at your very best and that you're pushing projects, you know, purpose projects along, and you know you're meeting the needs of your staff, and you know you got the productivity happening. I mean, there's nothing. There's not a better sense of a better feeling, I think, than that. And so it's October 9th, right? Starts at 9, I believe.
9, yeah.
And ends
With the
at
expo.
1:30. I'm going to be there. And honestly, Andrew, I'm approachable.
Oh, you
so
are.
I'm going to be hanging around, answering questions, equipping you, signing books, kissing babies, and we're going to have a blast.
That's good.
learning together, because we're in this together. This is our society that we want to make better.
It is. Rosalind, thank you so very much for sharing time with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I loved it. I loved it very much.
And you come to so many of our events and all our workshops, and it's just always great to see you. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Chamber Talk. Until next time, stay inspired and connected by visiting nocchamber.com and selecting Sign Up for News at the homepage. For more interviews, visit chambertalk.podbean.com.